The sky above the alien world of Veltrax was always red. Dark clouds moved slowly, hiding the stars. A crowd of thousands stood around the ancient stone arena. They came from many alien species, tall ones with silver skin, short ones with scales, and some with wings or horns. All of them stared at the center of the arena, where a black stone pillar held something powerful. Something forbidden. The sword. It was long and shining, stuck deep inside the black stone. Glowing red lines ran across its blade, pulsing like a heartbeat. No one knew how old it was. Some said the sword was made before even the stars were born. Others believed it had been a gift from the gods. But one thing was clear: no one could lift it, not for 1,000 years. Alien warriors from across the galaxy had tried. Kings, champions, generals, even criminals looking for redemption, all had failed. The moment their hands touched the hilt, the sword turned cold, or hot, or even sent lightning through their bodies. Some screamed, some died. Many were driven mad. The sword had a name whispered only in fear: the Soul Blade. It was said the sword chose its wielder. But for centuries, it had chosen no one. Near the edge of the crowd, a small figure stepped forward. He was not 10 feet tall or covered in armor. He did not roar or carry a plasma weapon. He wore a simple jacket and had messy brown hair. His name was Mason, and he was a human. The aliens laughed when they saw him, a weak little creature from a backwater planet. "He'll faint before he even touches it," one alien joked. "Maybe he just wants to die quickly," said another. The arena's guards didn't stop him. They thought it was funny, but Mason kept walking. His boots made soft sounds on the stone path as he approached the black pillar. The closer he got, the more the sword hummed. The glow grew brighter, the air grew cold, then hot. Mason's breath turned into mist. His hands trembled slightly, but he didn't stop. He remembered the story, the girl's voice, her eyes, the promise: lift the sword and break the curse. It didn't make sense before, but now in this place, it felt real. He didn't know what curse she meant. He didn't even know if she was still alive. But Mason wasn't here for fame or power. He was here because of her. On the platform above, the alien High Council watched with curious eyes. One of them, a tall being with glowing horns, leaned forward. "Another fool," he said. "But this one, he doesn't look afraid." Beside him, a six-eyed beast made of lava and bone growled. It was the sword's guardian, known as Kurzul. "I will crush him if he tries," it snarled. Mason stepped onto the stone platform. The crowd quieted. No one had gotten this close in many years. The sword was inches away now. The light was blinding. It felt like the sword was watching him, waiting. He reached out his hand. Everyone held their breath, but Mason didn't grab it. Not yet. He just placed one hand gently on the hilt. The sword's glow turned white. A loud hum filled the air. The black stone cracked slightly. The ground shook. The crowd gasped. He touched it. Someone shouted "Dot," but Mason didn't scream. He didn't fall. He just closed his eyes and whispered something no one could hear. Then, the glow stopped. The sword became still again. Mason stepped back, breathing heavily. He didn't pull the sword, not yet. But something had changed. The sword had reacted. For the first time in centuries, it had awakened. Not for a king, not for a monster, but for a human. The arena erupted in chaos. Aliens screamed in disbelief. Some cheered. Some ran. The High Council stared in shock. Kurzul slammed his fists into the ground. "This is not possible." The Guardian roared. Mason stood silently, staring at the sword. His eyes were calm. Behind him, the crowd was wild. But he didn't care. He knew this was just the beginning. The real test hadn't started yet, and deep inside the ancient blade, a voice whispered, "Worthy." Asterisk, far above the arena, hidden behind glowing shields and floating crystal thrones. The Watchers of Steel Flame observed in silence. They were not ordinary rulers. They were the oldest, most powerful minds and the galaxy keepers of law, guardians of history, and the judges of destiny. Each one had lived for hundreds of years, their eyes filled with war, wisdom, and fear. But today, they were not speaking. Today, they were watching a human. The youngest Watcher, a tall alien with smooth metal skin and deep blue eyes, leaned forward. He touched it. He whispered. His voice echoed through the chamber like a soft thunder. The others did not reply. They were stunned. For over 1,000 years the soul blade had remained untouched. Not because it couldn't be lifted, but because the sword rejected all who tried. It burned those with hate. It ignored those with pride. It shattered those with greed. And yet now, after all this time, a fragile, unknown human had placed his hand on it, and the sword had responded. The elder Watcher, whose face was hidden under a golden mask, finally spoke. "We must study him," he said. "No reaction has occurred since the twin kings of Verados tried and died. Shall we stop him?" Another asked. "No," the golden mask replied. "The blade has begun its test. Interfering now would be death for all." Meanwhile, back in the arena, Mason sat quietly near the black stone, his fingers still tingling. He had not pulled the sword. Not yet, but he felt something deep inside him stirring. A memory? A voice? A strange warmth? He didn't know. He only knew he wasn't alone anymore. The sword had seen him. From the shadows beneath the arena, massive doors opened with a boom. A wave of heat burst out as Kurzhul, the sword's ancient guardian, stepped into the light. Its molten skin hissed as cool air touched it. Flames curled from its jaws. Its 6 glowing eyes locked on Mason. "You were not chosen," the beast growled. "You are a mistake." Mason stood slowly. He didn't run. He didn't reach for a weapon. He just looked the creature in the eyes and said, "I don't care what you think." The crowd gasped. The beast snarled. "No alien, no god, no warrior has passed the sword's gaze. Yet you, a human, dare speak with such pride?" "I made a promise," Mason said quietly, "and I'm not leaving until it's done." The ground cracked under Kurzhul's feet as it stomped forward. Its body was covered in armor like scales. Its claws could tear through ships. It had crushed champions who dared approach the sword. Now it came for him. Then face the trial of fire, it roared. The arena began to change. Fire burst from the floor. The walls closed. The crowds vanished behind safety shields. The ground beneath Mason shifted and began to glow. Runes appeared under his feet, ancient and forgotten. "You will burn, human." But Mason didn't run. Because deep inside him, something burned hotter than fire, a memory. A young alien girl, her skin glowing with starlight, had once looked at him with sad eyes. She had saved him from death when he didn't deserve it. She had whispered, "You are not like the others. You feel. You care." And then, as she died in his arms, she said, "Lift the sword. Free them, please." Now as the fire rose, Mason clenched his fists. He didn't have claws. He didn't have wings or ancient magic. He only had his promise and the strange energy building inside him. Kurzhul charged. The flames followed. Mason didn't move. The fire hit him, then passed through him. Harmless. The beast stopped. So did the flames. In the chamber above, the Watchers stood up. The golden mask stared. "He did not burn," he whispered. "The sword is protecting him." "Impossible," another said. "That trial kills all." "But not him," the youngest Watcher whispered. "Because maybe, just maybe, he is worthy." Back in the arena, Mason took a deep breath and stepped forward. Kurzhul growled, but didn't attack. For the first time in centuries, the ancient guardian lowered its head, not in defeat, but in respect. The crowd was silent, and the soul blade began to glow again. Before the fire, before the sword, before the arena filled with monsters and kings, there was silence, cold silence. Mason stood in the middle of a ruined village long ago, on a planet torn by war. Smoke rose from broken homes. The air smelled of ash and blood. Human soldiers had come to conquer. Alien defenders had fought to survive. And in the middle of the chaos, a young alien girl knelt beside a collapsed statue, trying to protect something. Or someone. She wasn't a warrior. She wasn't armed. She was just kind. Mason had been a scout then, barely trained. His orders were to clear the area. He had a weapon in his hand. But when his eyes met hers, he didn't pull the trigger. She had looked afraid, but not of him, of something worse. He had stepped closer, and that's when he saw it, her little brother, half buried under the rubble, barely breathing. She was shielding him with her body. Mason dropped his weapon and started digging. He didn't know why. He just did it. For hours he worked while others fought, and when it was over, the boy was safe. But the girl had been burned badly. She didn't cry. She just smiled faintly and whispered, "You're not like the others." That was the first time Mason felt something deeper than duty. Something stronger than orders. He had stayed by her side for 3 days while the war raged elsewhere. And on the 4th day, as she lay dying, she reached out and touched his chest. "Go to Veltrax," she whispered. "Find the soul blade, lift it, free my people. It will know you." Then she died. Now years later, Mason stood again before the soul blade, surrounded by enemies who doubted him, fire beasts who tested him, and a weapon that seemed alive. But in his heart, her voice still echoed. Back in the floating throne chamber, the watchers were no longer silent. "The sword reacted again," the youngest watcher said. "It glows brighter every time he steps closer." "The blade sees into the soul," the elder replied. "This human carries something most of our kind lost long ago. What is that?" Another asked. "A promise." In the arena, Mason stared at the sword once more. His fingers were scorched, his clothes burned from the trial, but his eyes were steady. He wasn't just here to lift the sword. He was here to keep his word. Suddenly, a deep hum came from the sword. The red glow turned gold. Energy shot through. The stone, the black pillar, cracked even more. Runes lit up around it in circles. A voice echoed, not from the sky, not from the watchers, but from the sword itself. "Do you remember her?" Mason's heart froze. Yes, he did, every second. Every word. The voice grew louder. "Then show me your pain. Show me your reason." In a flash, Mason was pulled into another vision. He stood inside a great storm. Lightning cracked. Ghostly faces surrounded him, soldiers he had killed, friends he had lost. The girl's eyes as she faded away. "Why you?" The voices shouted. "You are weak. You are human. You are unworthy." Mason dropped to his knees, gripping his chest. The pain was real. His skin burned. His breath caught. But then he remembered her smile, her hand on his heart. And he whispered, "I don't care if I'm unworthy. I made a promise. And I will keep it." The storm shattered. The voices vanished. Mason opened his eyes. He was back in the arena, and the sword was glowing so bright now, even the sky dimmed. A wind blew through the silent crowd. The runes on the ground pulsed like a heartbeat. The black stone holding the sword began to crumble. The alien crowd gasped. "He survived the second trial. The blade, look." From the watcher's chamber, the golden-masked elder stood tall. "It speaks to him," he said. "The sword remembers the girl. It remembers his heart." Kezhul, the ancient guardian, approached slowly. It didn't growl this time. It didn't roar. It simply said, "You carry a fire no weapon can match, human. For the first time in 10 centuries, I bow." And the beast knelt. Mason didn't feel proud. He didn't raise his fists in victory. He only looked at the sword and whispered, "I'm not here to be chosen. I'm here because I couldn't forget her." And the sword replied, softly glowing, "Then take your next step, keeper of promise." Before Mason arrived, the arena was a place of pride, a stage for kings. They came dressed in gold armor, wearing long red cloaks. They walked like gods, their names shouted by thousands. Each claimed they were the one to lift the soul blade. Each promised glory, peace, or destruction. And every one of them had failed. One king had brought his entire army to watch. Another had sacrificed slaves to prove his worth. Some knelt. Some cursed the sword when it rejected them. But the sword didn't care about crowns. The sword didn't bow to power. It crushed egos. It melted thrones. It rejected kings. Now, under the silent sky, a new king approached the arena. King Voktar of Zorak Prime. 10 feet tall. 4 arms, covered in crystal armor glowing with dark energy. His eyes burned red and his voice shook the walls. "I demand a second trial." He roared. I was not given a fair chance. The crowd parted as he walked. Even the guardians moved aside. The watchers watched silently, allowing him to speak. "I am blood of conquerors. I hold 7 worlds under my rule." Voktar growled. "And you let a human touch the blade before me?" He turned to Mason, who stood calmly with burned hands and torn clothes. "You are nothing but soft flesh and weak bones." Voktar snarled. "That sword belongs to me." Mason didn't answer. He just looked at the sword. Voktar stepped forward, ignoring the cracks in the ground. He raised his 4 hands and gripped the hilt with a mighty roar. The moment his fingers touched the blade, boom, lightning exploded from the sword. The sky turned black. The ground shattered beneath him. Voktar screamed as golden fire raced up his arms, turning his crystal armor into dust. His body flew back, crashing into the wall like a broken puppet. The arena went silent again. The sword returned to its still glow, quiet and calm, as if saying, "You may be king, but you are not worthy." Above, the watchers spoke for the first time in hours. "The blade continues to test. It shows no mercy, yet it hasn't destroyed the human. Because the human did not demand the sword, he earned its notice." Voktar lay groaning on the arena floor. His 4 arms were burned black. Mason walked past him quietly. He didn't look down. He didn't mock him. He just whispered, "You tried to own it. I only came to honor her." The crowd of aliens was now confused. Some were angry, others curious. One young alien whispered to his father, "Why won't the sword choose a king?" His father answered, "Because kings ask for the world, but that human, he only asked for a chance." Back near the black stone, Mason touched the ground. The glowing runes around the sword shifted shape, ancient language rearranging itself. One of the alien scholars in the Watcher's chamber gasped, "The sword, it's changing its script. It's showing him the next path." The golden masked elder nodded. "The sword is ready. The final trial is near." Kurzhul, the guardian beast, stepped closer to Mason once again. "If you take it now, human, your life will no longer be your own." "I know," Mason said. "You will be hunted, feared, hated by kings, feared by empires." "I know," Mason repeated. "Then why continue?" Mason looked up at the beast and said, "Because a girl with glowing skin once said I was different, and if I stop now, then her sacrifice means nothing." Kurzhul said nothing, but his molten jaw closed tight, and he stepped back. The soul blade began to rise from the black stone slowly on its own, just an inch, like it was breathing again. The arena's walls shook. Every alien in the crowd stood frozen. The sword was awakening. Not for a king, not for a warlord, but for a human who never asked for power. Just justice. The sword did not scream. It sang. A soft, deep hum filled the air like a forgotten lullaby from the stars. The black stone crumbled, piece by piece, as ancient energy stirred in the earth. Dust floated upward, glowing gold. Time itself felt slower, and Mason stood in the center of it all, completely still. He didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He simply placed his hand on his chest, right where the alien girl had once touched him, and whispered, "I'm ready." The soul blade pulsed in answer, like a living heart above. Inside the floating Watcher's chamber, silence fell heavy. "He's not lifting it," the youngest Watcher said softly. "He's not trying to take control," another added. The golden masked elder leaned forward, his voice barely a whisper. "He is letting the sword decide." And that, more than anything, terrified them. Back in the arena, Mason reached out again, slow, calm, respectful. His hand touched the hilt, but this time, the sword touched him back. A sudden warmth rushed through his fingers, up his arm, into his chest. He saw flashes not of pain or battle, but of memories that weren't his. Starship crashing into a red sea, a child crying beneath twin moons, a warrior kneeling in the rain, whispering a final prayer before battle. The sword held stories, souls, lives lost long ago. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a graveyard. Mason's knees shook, but he stood firm. "I see them," he whispered. "I remember them." The sword hummed louder. A golden line of light ran down the blade. Symbols floated off its surface and danced around Mason, like tiny spirits. The crowd gasped. The wind changed. Even the stars above shimmered strangely. Suddenly, a deep crack echoed across the arena floor. The stone beneath the sword split completely. The blade loosened. The soul blade rose 1 inch, then another, and then it stopped. Mason held the hilt with both hands now. His eyes were glowing faintly, filled with the same light as the sword. But something pushed back. Not pain, not fire, but doubt. Not from Mason, but from the sword itself. "Are you strong enough?" it whispered inside his head. "Are you willing to become what you fear?" Mason clenched the hilt tighter. "I'm not here to become a hero," he said aloud. "I'm here to keep a promise, that's all." Flames burst from the ground around him, but did not burn. Winds howled, but did not move him. Even Kurzhul, the beast guardian, stepped back. This was no longer a trial. This was a conversation, one between a sword forged by forgotten gods and a human who refused to give up. Then, without a single sound, the sword came free. No explosion, no scream. Just stillness. Like the entire universe had taken a breath. Mason stood holding the soul blade in both hands. The glow faded into a soft blue. The runes vanished. The ground cooled. The trials were over. The blade had chosen. Above, the Watchers stood from their thrones. "Impossible," one of them whispered. "He didn't conquer the sword," another said. "He connected with it," the Golden Elder finished, and for the first time in centuries, the Watchers bowed their heads. Mason looked down at the blade. It felt warm, familiar, not heavy at all. But in his heart, he felt the weight of every life the sword had known. Every king who had died. Every promise broken, and one promise kept. He whispered softly, "You're free now." The soul blade pulsed once more. In the silence, a small alien child in the crowd asked, "What happens now?" No one answered. Not even Mason, because no one knew. But one thing was certain: the sword that had rejected kings, burned tyrants, and shattered armies, now rested in the hands of a human, and everything was about to change. The sword was in his hand, but the real battle had just begun. Mason didn't fall. He didn't scream. But the moment he gripped the soul blade fully, the world around him disappeared. No crowd, no Watchers, no sky, only darkness. He stood alone in an endless void. The ground beneath his feet glowing faintly with moving runes. The air was heavy, silent, even the stars were gone. Then, A whisper echoed in the dark. You hold power meant for no one. Mason turned, but saw nothing. Another voice came, softer, older, sadder. You carry promises made in dying breath. But are you ready to carry their pain? Then came the first image, a burning city, walls collapsing. Screams in the distance. A soldier human shooting wildly. A child caught in the crossfire. Her glowing skin, familiar. No. Mason whispered. It wasn't real, but it was. The soul blade didn't just test strength. It tested truth. The second vision began. Mason stood before a mirror. But the reflection wasn't him. It was the King Voktar, crowned in fire, holding the sword high. Worlds burned beneath him. Cities fell. Stars exploded. Then the reflection changed again. Now it was Mason, standing tall, eyes cold, same sword in hand, the same destruction behind him. You could do it, the voice whispered. You could lead. You could rule. You could avenge every lost soul. Mason's hand trembled. Was this what the sword offered? Not peace, but power? Was this? What happened to those who failed? They weren't weak. They were tempted. No, Mason said, stepping back. I don't want thrones. I don't want control. The whisper replied coldly. Then why do you seek the blade? Suddenly, the third trial began. He stood once more. In the ruins of that alien village, but this time, the girl stood alive before him, her eyes wide, her hand reaching out. Mason, she whispered. Don't take the sword. Please stay. Let it end here. Tears filled his eyes. It felt so real. He could smell the air, hear her voice, feel her warmth. He could stay here forever. But he stepped back. I can't, he said. You made me promise. Her smile faded. The world shattered like glass. Then came the final voice. Not loud, not angry, just honest. Then carry our weight, all of it. And suddenly, the darkness lit up with thousands of glowing figures, souls bound to the sword. Old kings, warriors, villagers, monsters, children, enemies, friends. They all looked at Mason, some angry, some hopeful. All silent. Then one by one, they bowed. Not to a conqueror, but to a keeper. In the arena, only seconds had passed, but Mason opened his eyes slowly, his breathing shaky. The soul blade in his hand was no longer glowing wildly. It now shimmered with soft blue light, not burning, not cold. Balanced. Above, in the Watcher's chamber, the Golden Elder placed a hand over his chest. He passed the inner trial. The sword tested his soul, said another, and he remained himself. Kurzhul, the lava guardian, growled from the edge of the arena. But it was not anger, it was respect. You walked into your own shadow, the beast said, and did not lose yourself. Mason said nothing. He couldn't. Not yet. He was still carrying the weight of those visions, still hearing their voices, still feeling their pain. But then, something changed in the blade. The sword shimmered again, and from it, a single thread of light floated into the sky, splitting the clouds above. The curse was lifting. For the first time in 1,000 years, the soul blade had found a worthy bearer. Not a warrior, not a king, just a man who kept his promise. The light rose higher. A soft beam of golden energy climbed from the sword, cutting through the thick red skies of Veltrax like a star reborn. The crowd in the arena stared in silence. Even the wind had stopped moving. Something sacred was happening, and no one dared to speak. Mason stood alone, the soul blade glowing softly in his hands, but he didn't lift it into the air. He didn't shout. He simply looked at it. His face was calm, but his eyes were full of memories, pain, and a strange peace. He had passed every trial not by being the strongest, but by being true. High above, the Watchers stepped back from their floating thrones. The sword has spoken, said the youngest one, eyes wide. And it speaks through him now. The curse has ended, the elder whispered, his golden mask reflecting the sword's glow. He is the one who didn't ask to be chosen. He simply came because of love. The alien crowd slowly began to move again. Some gasped, some fell to their knees, some whispered ancient prayers no one had spoken in 1,000 years. Children pointed at the human with wide eyes. "Mama," one said, tugging her mother's hand, "he's not like the others." And she nodded. "No, he's not." Kurzhul, the lava beast, approached quietly now, his massive form casting no shadow. "You did not lift the sword to command armies." The guardian rumbled. Double quotes, "No," Mason answered. "You did not seek glory." "No." "Then tell me, human, what will you do now?" Mason looked up at the sky, at the broken stars, at the people still waiting for a sign. And he said softly, "I will protect those who cannot protect themselves. I will carry the sword, not as a weapon, but as a reminder of what was lost, and what must never be forgotten." The words echoed through the arena. The soul blade shimmered with soft white light. Not fire, not lightning, just light. Warm. Pure. Hopeful. The black stone that once held the sword crumbled fully, revealing an old carving underneath. No one had seen it before, not even the watchers. Ancient symbols lined the circle around Mason's feet, a forgotten prophecy, one that read, "He will not wear a crown. He will not seek to rule. But in his hand shall be the blade that ends the silence." The silence was ending now. From distant cities on Veltrax, bells rang. From deep space, messages were sent. Across the galaxy, those who had once tried and failed would soon hear the news. The soul blade had been lifted. By a human. But for Mason, there was no celebration. No parades. No loud cheers. He walked quietly to the edge of the arena. The alien crowd made a path for him, silent in awe and respect. As he reached the gates, a small alien girl stepped forward, no older than 10. She had the same glowing skin, the same kind eyes as the one he had once lost. She held a flower blue, soft, trembling in her little hands. "For her," she said. Mason knelt, accepting it with trembling fingers. He whispered, "Thank you," and walked on. Behind him, the sword pulsed one last time. The curse was broken, but the journey was just beginning, because legends aren't born in war. They are born when someone chooses to do what is right, even when no one is watching. And so the galaxy remembered his name, not as a king, not as a conqueror, but as the one who lifted the sword and never let it change him.